NASCAR's 36th race season starts with the Daytona 500, the most famous race in the series. Will it live up to the hype? We get lucky sometimes that Daytona exceeds expectations. I will tell you the story of when Daytona lived up to the hype back in 2012 for one of the most chaotic races the sport has ever seen. 2012. Everyone thought the world was going to end while London's mayor was getting stuck on a zip line, Call Me Maybe was topping the charts, Batman James Bond died, and the 2012 election was starting to get heated. A year for the books. But what better way to kick off one of the craziest years in recent memory by having an equally crazy race? As the last weekend in February neared, the media focused on one of NASCAR's rising stars, Danica Patrick. Making her way over from IndyCar, Danica Mania was getting as intense as many anticipated, as Danica rocked the world with Stewart Haas Racing in her GoDaddy Impala. How would she fare against NASCAR's top stars? Speed Weeks ended up being an absolute hit, as the sparks flew along with some intense racing. Tandem drafting had been nearly eliminated from the racing product, and the pack appeared to be as close as ever before. As qualifying rolled around, it would be an all-Roush Fenway front row as Carl Edwards took pole, followed by Greg Biffle, reigning champion Tony Stewart, and Matt Kenseth. Menard, Montoya, and Gilliland would be moved to the rear due to backup cars, and Kurt Busch would do the same due to an engine change. Danica would start back in 29th, and 2011 race winner Trevor Bayne would start in 40th. Once race day finally arrived, the skies looked grim. Showers had coated the track in moisture for the past 12 hours, and it seemed as if there was no end in sight. NASCAR was left with no choice but to postpone the race until the next day. Well, the next day arrived and there was more rain. NASCAR once again postponed the race to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, which would mean it would be the first Daytona 500 to be run at prime time. Would the fans stay? The answer would be yes. Giving off Monday Night Football vibes, fans came out in droves to start the 54th annual Daytona 500. Fans finally got what they wanted as a pace car pulled off the track for the beginning of the race. With help from his teammate Matt Kenseth, Biffle and Kenseth would storm up to the front and take the lead. Jamie McMurray would go below the yellow line, find his teammate Juan Pablo Montoya, and hopefully link up to make it to the front. At last, the end of the first lap. And all of a sudden, this happened.
3 Fords, already. The wall. Slams to the outside. It's 5-time champion Jim Johnson. He collects Danica Patrick and the 34 of David Reagan.
Trevor Bayne, the 21 car, winner from last year. You see him involved?
Kurt Busch is involved.
I'm a little worried about Jimmy. He took a hard lick right in the door.
Jimmy Johnson gets spun into the outside wall by Elliott Sadler and is clobbered by David Reagan. Danica Patrick swerves to avoid the wreck but is collected. A couple of other cars spin into the grass, trying to avoid Johnson's spinning car. Unfortunately for Danica Mania, the hype surrounding the rising female star was quickly diminished as she pulled her car into the garage for lengthy repairs. The entire field would take to pit road in the first stops of the day. Greg Biffle would lead all but Hamlin and Menard for a top-off on fuel. The green flag would be shown again to resume racing, only to be put out shortly after for a spinning Ryan Newman. As if things could not get worse for the 2008 winner of the race, Ryan Newman would pull away from his pit stall as his left rear wheel ominously jettisoned from his axle. AJ Allmendinger would be speeding up to enter his stall and would hit Newman's stricken car, forcing him to the garage with a severely damaged radiator. For the third time in only 14 laps, Denny Hamlin and Paul Menard would lead the field to the green flag. Viewers were then subjected to pushing and shoving throughout the pack as the field negotiated the 2.5-mile facility without a second out of the throttle. It seemed at this point, as handling faded, that most drivers would be sticking to the bottom lane. As green flag pit stops began, everyone would be taking 4 tires and a full tank of gas. Matt Kenseth would have water pressure issues as he pitted, dropping him to 32nd. Finally, the outside lane would begin to form, only to fall foul to Jeff Gordon's engine expiring, bringing out the third caution of the day. Martin Truex Jr. would lead everyone down pit road with full service. We are nearing the halfway point when drivers finally start to get racy. NASCAR would award 200,000 big ones to the leader halfway. With help from Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. would be slingshotted into the lead to win the dough. Unbeknownst to everyone, Matt Kenseth would survive going a lap down and is cutting his way up to the field to 16th at the halfway point. At this point, the entire field is glued to the yellow line, knocking down lap after lap, waiting for someone to make a move. As lap 110 rolled around, pole setter Carl Edwards was mired back in the 21st position with fuel pressure issues. He sought to burn as little as possible as his pressure gauge began to go nuts. Clint Boyer would have fuel issues himself and would run dry on lap 127, forcing him to stop his car, bringing out the 6th caution of the day on lap 129. Mark Martin was making a stop as a caution waved, meaning he would lead the field to the green on the restart. The field would again take the green, But it would not be long before things became bizarre. With 45 laps to go, David Stremmy's engine would fail in turn 3, and he would spin in front of traffic, dropping oil everywhere. The caution flag would wave for the 7th time. All the leaders except for Dave Blaney, Landy Castle, and Tony Raines would make their stops. The 42 Target Chevy of Juan Pablo Montoya would report a severe vibration coming from his car after leaving a stall. Meanwhile, Speedy Dry is being laid in the upper groove of turn 3, and the jet dryers are soon on their way to blow it off the track. Montoya would make one last stop at his stall for his crew to check if anything was wrong. They did not find anything. Montoya drives off pit road. He needs to catch up to the field at the start-finish line as they take the 1-to-go signal. Montoya is barreling down the backstretch at about 130 miles an hour. He lifts off the throttle when he sees the flashing yellow lights of the safety truck in turn 3. All of a sudden, this happens.
They're trying to clear debris off the racetrack, and the car brakes, won't steer, and he slides up the track.
Flames about 3 stories high erupt from turn 3 as Montoya's severely damaged car slides down the embankment into the grass. The helicopter engine powering the jet dryer is badly damaged, and fuel runs down the banking. Terry Labonte slows down and slips through the fuel. Somewhere, a spark meets the fuel, and 200 gallons of jet kerosene ignite as a wall of fire engulfs the turn 3 banking. The red flag is immediately displayed. At the time, the Fox broadcast is in commercial, and viewers are stunned to see the rumbling inferno tearing up the racing surface. The drivers left in the race would be halted on the backstretch in shock of what had just happened. During the race, Brad Keselowski kept his iPhone in his pocket and took a photo from inside his car looking towards turn 3. He would post this photo on Twitter and start the eventual cataclysmic shit show on NASCAR Twitter today. On the bright side, fans were treated to more racing as Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Brad Keselowski made a mad dash to nearby Porta-John. More shenanigans would ensue on the Fox broadcast as many humorous interviews were given as fans got a better insight into the personalities behind the wheel. For nearly 2 hours, the track is repaired and the mess is removed. Matt Kenseth assumed the lead as Blaney, Castle, and Raines pitted as the race finally resumed. After a few more cautions and a green light checkered restart, Kenseth maintained his composure and went on to win the 54th running of the Daytona 500. Dale Earnhardt Jr. would get the best of Kenseth's teammate Greg Biffle and finish runner-up. Obviously, Kenseth would have to take the lead in the Drivers' Championship, and Ford would likewise in the Manufacturers' Championship. The ratings for the race revealed that it was the second most watched Daytona 500 ever, behind 2006. Well guys, that'll do it for another video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to like and subscribe. Please leave some suggestions for future videos in the comments, and you never know, it might be featured in a future video. This has been the Wheelspin Report. Catch you next time.